Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on O versus A, possessive prepositions. And this video and the next are going to be some of the hardest and most difficult concepts in the course. And so I want you to come into these videos having the expectation that these things aren't going to come overnight. This video and the next are going to be the first stepping stones in acquiring this knowledge and putting them into your Samoan repertoire. But you're going to have to be able to refine these things with time. And the way that you do that is you come across it as you speak, as you listen, as you write, and as you read. These principles and these areas of the language will help you as you come across it more and more. And so you're going to be able to get better and better as you work on this in those areas. And then you're also probably going to want to watch this video again to kind of solidify these things in the future of what you're discussing and communicating. What I also want to point out is that a lot of these principles are as complex as they are. A lot of times you can mess up on them and still be able to communicate. And that's what we want. We don't want to be communicable. We want to be able to communicate with others. There are going to be a couple exceptions where I'm going to tell you, don't use this in this area because it's going to be very offensive, or vice versa. Okay, there's going to be a couple things like that, but for the most part you can interchange these two, rules, and you'll still be able to communicate and get your point across. And that's what we're most worried about. And as time comes, you'll be able to refine that and become better at these principles. So, O and A in Samoan can often be translated as of. So when they're by themselves, most of the time they're translated as of. However, their use is usually not interchangeable. And this is what I'm saying. For now, you're probably going to interchange it a lot. But the more and more you get better, you're going to be able to refine it and use the correct way that they do that. And a lot of times that's through example. The way that they say things, you can start to say it the way that they do. And so that's why it's important to speak and to listen. Okay? Awesome. So, and also, O and A are particles that can be used in indicating possession. So in our next video, we're going to be talking about possessive pronouns. And so you're going to be using these same principles in those possessive pronouns. And you'll see a little bit of that in this video as well. Additionally, they express the relationship between the possessor and thing being possessed. So that's the reason why this video is a little bit hard. It indicates, okay, the thing that's being possessed and the relationship between the possessor. Okay? So A denotes an active controlling relationship. So I'm right in this area. A denotes an active controlling relationship between the possessor and the thing being possessed, such as the speech of the man. And in Samoan, you would say, ole launga ale te maloa. Okay? The man has control over his speech, so A is used. So a lot of times you can break it down to, do I have control over this certain thing? Well, if I do, I use A, and if I don't, then I use O. So that's probably the most basic way. There's also some other ways, and we're going to get into those key areas of which is the most correct way to use it. Okay, but for now, I would just focus on really trying to get that down. Do I have power over it or do I have control over it? Okay, I use A. And if I don't, then I use O. And a lot of times I like to think, okay, A stands for authority, and so I have power or authority over that thing, and so I use A. And if I don't, then I use O. And there's obviously exceptions to that, and we're going to get into those exceptions a little bit later. Okay, so O on the other hand denotes a relationship where the possessor does not control the thing possessed, where the possessor is dominated by the possession, or to indicate parts of a whole. Okay, so here's some examples. The village of the girl, ole nu'u ole tene, the god of all people, ole atua o tangata uma, and the color of the book, ole lanu ole tusi. And don't mistake that this O that's at the very beginning, this is the particle O. This is the video basic grammar that we talked about, basic grammar 1. This is just indicating to you that there's a noun phrase that's following that particle O. The O that we're talking about in this video is this O right here. And this is the O that's of, or it communicates to you the relationship between the thing that's being possessed. Indicates the difference between, the relationship between the person that's possessing and the thing that's being possessed. Okay, so awesome. So because of the nature of these relationships, the preposition A is usually reserved for human possessors. So a lot of times when human possessors or they possess something, then you use a, okay? And you'll see that a lot in these different forms. So for a, o upu ale tangata, I'm looking right here, the words of the person, but when I'm talking about the words of the song, then I'll use o upu ole pese, okay? And then the answer of the woman would be, sorry, that was ole tali ale fafine, because she has control over that answer. And then ole tali ole facile, the answer of the question doesn't have authority or power over that answer, okay? So that's another little thing that you can think of, is a lot of times with humans you'll use a, and a lot of times with object or other kind of possessors you'll use o. But here's kind of a thing that you need to be a little bit cautious with. When you use a and o, sometimes it can change the meaning significantly. Sometimes identical phrases will be changed somewhat, or sometimes they'll be changed a lot, okay? So here's some examples. Ole tala ale nu'u. So this is with an A, the story the village is talking about. But if you were to put O, the ole tala ole nu'u, the story about the village, it's history. So this is kind of some differences between O and A. So the blessing the boy gave, ole fa'amanoyanga ale tama, and the blessing the boy received is ole fa'amanoyanga ole tama. Okay, the picture the girl owned, ole ata ale tene, and the picture of the girl, it has her likeness, ole ata ole tene. So this could be like, you know, your aunt has a picture of this girl, and you would use it in this case. But if the girl had a picture of something, then she would use this case. Ole nu'u ale tamaloa, the village of the man, the one that he rules. So this would be like a chief. And ole nu'u ole tamaloa, the village of the man, the one he lives or was born. Okay. These last two are the ones that you need to be very careful with. And so when you use fe'au and mea, you need to make sure that you are using the correct usage. It's probably going to be a more often than not. And so when you say olana fe'au, you're talking about his or her errand or business. And when you talk about olona fe'au, you're talking about his or her you know what. Okay, so extrements. And so this is going to cause a little bit of... you need to use some caution here. So when you use fe'au and mea especially, you need to make sure that you use a in most cases. Okay? So olana mea is his or her thing. So grab your things, or he needs to grab his things, or you all need to grab your things. Okay? This is when you use a. Okay? But if you used o in these cases, then you're talking about their, specific thing, their genitals. So this is why you need to be very cautious with these last two examples, okay? Awesome, so moving on. So here's the actual rules, and like I said, I'm not going to expect you to remember all of these, but I would like you to at least go over them so you have a first stepping stone. So the O1 class is in which situations in which the possessor is dominated or ruled by the possession. And here's some examples, and I would encourage you to pause the video and read those examples. Okay, O2, so situations in which the possessor is physically dominated, covered, carried, or upheld by a possession. So that can include houses. I encourage you to pause the video and all of these example sentences and read them as we're going on, because I'm not going to be going over those. Another example is boats, cars, and vehicles. The third example is clothing and umbrella, and major geographical locations. And an exception to this, the words fa'atawanga, farm, and sami, sea, are A class. Okay, so again, pause the video, go over these example sentences and why they fit in this rule. Okay, moving on, O3, biological relationships in which the possessor is perceived as having no choice in the existence of the relationship. So this can be parts of a whole or a body. And an exception to this, the word ava, beard, is A class. And parents, brothers, sisters, offsprings of men, and honorific terms for spouse. So these last two are kind of a little bit different. The first two, the first three, parents, brothers, and sisters, that makes pretty logical sense to me. But these offspring of men and honorific terms for spouse are kind of included into the O3 rule. And so I'd like you to pause again the video and go over these example sentences. Okay, moving on to O4. This is our last O class, so thoughts, feelings, skills, desires, and attributes. Okay, so this is, you have choice in a lot of these, but also it's almost like perceived as thoughts, feelings, skills, desires, and attributes. It's almost like, okay, after all this time that you put in, this effort or all this, time towards things, it's almost like this is just the way that you are now. It's kind of who you are. You do have control over your thoughts and feelings and things, but your skills, desires, attributes, all these things become kind of who you are. And so this is why this is considered O class, I guess. You do have control over it, but after such a long time, this is who you are, and so it falls more under the O class. An exception to this, the word talent, talent is A class. Okay, so that's our O class. I would encourage you to pause the video, go over the O class before moving on to the A class. So the A class is a situation in which the possessor dominates or has control over the possession. Okay, so property not covered in O class, rules including family, including food and animals. And an exception is water is normally O class, but any drink is A class. And the B section is human behavior, customs, work, and anything voiced. Note, FIVA, job, skill, craft is classed as a skill and is covered by O3. Okay, so again, pause the video, go over this chart again, and go over the example sentences. Okay, moving on to A2, relationships in which the possessor is perceived as having a choice in creating the relationship. So, children in general, offspring, and common terms for spouse. An exception to this, the word toalua is O class, and friends and companions. So again, I encourage you to go over these things again, and honestly, we went over this extremely fast, and that's the thing that's very nice about videos, is that you can pause and read the things so that you can go over them yourself. Okay, and so I know that we went fast, but a lot of times you need to do your own kind of reading and your own kind of, studying. You need to study and come up with things on your own. So I do know as you pause and go over this more and more and more, that things will start to come to you, and that you'll also see this in Samoan. And so we need these rules to be able to go on to possessive pronouns. So you need to at least have a very formed opinion. I guess not opinion. You need to understand this pretty well in order to move on to the next video. So get these rules down, especially the one that we talked at the very beginning. If you have authority or power over something, or if you control something, then it's usually A class, and if you don't, then it's O class, and usually with humans it's A, and usually with other things it's O. But you also need to be careful when using certain words like fe'au and mea, and there's also some other words out there, but those are probably the two that are most crucial. Okay, so again, we did not spend enough time in the 13 minutes that we spent together to get this down. This takes a lot of hard work and effort. So pause the video at certain times, read over the material, and get this down. And I'll see you in the next video, and I'll talk a little bit more in that video. Tofa soifua.